I'm here with Klie and Mario Wagner. Klie is the level designer of Bakura, and Mario is one of the many artists here at Factor 5 that created some of the artwork for the game. Let's maybe just start off about, this is a really interesting level as far as, some of the different elements here, the space station, the planet in the background. It's a nice space level. Maybe you guys can talk about some of the inspiration both on the level design side and also on the art side.
That's a big question.
I know it's a big question.
Okay.
It's a big level.
Yes. Well, this level was unique in that basically we're handling a lot in this mission. In this level, the player in a Bay-Wing needs to use his ion cannon to disable Imperial landers as they're disembarking from the station. And as soon as he does that, for every Imperial lander he disables, a Rebel transport will come dock with that lander and offload prisoners. To make a long story short, we're handling a lot of events in this level. It's very heavily event-driven, which means a lot of the action depends upon what the player does. And that can be sort of difficult from a scripting standpoint. For those who don't know, we use scripting to basically orchestrate all of the events of a level. It's not quite like programming, but it's sort of like programming. And the script for this level is about 600 pages of text. And one thing that we stumbled upon to make this rather large, insane script manageable is the idea of script modules, which is sort of an object-oriented approach to scripting, where every tiny event, everything that happens in this level is being handled by an individual miniature script. So that sort of gave us a new paradigm to work with as far as scripting was concerned.
I think the space station's really cool, and it's kind of neat that it's spinning around here, and there's some really neat art assets on there as well. Maybe you could talk about how you thought of the idea and how you worked with the artist to come up with the design for this space station.
Yeah, actually, I sat down with Julian and we came up with a really rough design that was inspired by some things we'd seen in some science fiction movies that we liked. And we wanted to take that rough design, make it more stylized, make it fit much better within the Star Wars universe. And that's when we consulted Mr. Wagner. And he, as well as Paul Topoulos, were very instrumental in getting this space station to its final look. Mario, do you want to talk about that?
Can you talk about how you designed this and how you came? Did you draw it out on a piece of paper first before you built it?
I would say the first rough model actually came from Chris, who did already the foundation for it by roughing it in Maya, and he then just handed it over, and I started to look at the silhouette, and looked at what was working, consulted back and forth with him, and started to add in all those little details that were necessary. For example, define the ports for the freighters, add in more detailed geometry that was partially set up in level of detail groups, so it fades in and out.
Well, what kind of tools do you use to create?
We just as the IDs, we did most of the, not just most, but all of the modeling work in Maya. And this is actually an interesting object because unlike geometry in other levels, even though it's really big, it is one piece, it's just one art asset that is brought straight out of Maya into the game.
So do you, after you create it and it gets put into the game, do you review it with the level designer?
I would say, yeah, we bring in the coarse, rough geometry first, untextured, and what was really important for the space station is to have it appear very big in size, kind of like let's say like a Star Destroyer, and we had to experiment around how much detail do we really have to put in to make it appear that big. Mm-hmm. Do we really need lots of detail geometry? Can we get away with just defining the textures more, put in more windows, lights, material, structure? And I think it was a little bit of everything. And at some point we had it actually very geometry heavy, and but it wasn't feasible performance wise.
So how does that happen? Does Does the level designer come back to you and say that artwork isn't working performance-wise?
Yeah, we go back and forth. We try it out at least to see how much we can afford with having all the objects on screen in a real gameplay environment, having an amount of TIE fighters zoom around and fill it up with realistic gameplay action and check the performance, go back and forth, see what we can afford and take it out again and export that asset out.
So is there anything that you guys want to talk about, or sort of a secret that somebody might not normally see on this level, whether it's from an art side or from a level design side?
Well, hopefully by now, whoever is listening to this has realized that this level has some sort of added bonus content. If the player does really well in the first part, you can actually unlock a second part, which is all takes place on the ice moon below. And it's sort of interesting because, again, here you have a level that it's a bit flexible. It responds to what the player's doing, and that was sort of a challenge, trying to figure out how to incorporate this new content in a way that was fair to the player. We didn't want to put him in a situation where perhaps he thought, okay, well, I just finished this really tough level and now I've got more tough stuff to do before I can really be done. So, and I'm talking too much. So,
it's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for talking about this level.